Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Lewis again. So I want to explain to you about the kidney disease so that those misconceptions that you've always heard about kidney disease, I will clear them once and for all. Now, all of you have heard about the kidney diets, okay, and their role in kidney recovery. So you've heard about avoiding foods that are rich in sodium, basically the salts, avoiding caffeine, avoiding or minimizing the amount of protein that you take, limiting fluids, avoiding saturated fats, and also avoiding just basically all these foods that will are actually associated with causing a kidney problem. Now, shock on you, because avoiding these foods is not about aiming at healing the kidney. It has no relationship with healing your failing kidneys. This is basically to minimize the consequences that these foods will bring in kidney failure. So you already have a failing kidney. So they are not addressing the cause. These foods are actually affecting or touching on the consequences that will come as a result of eating these foods or avoiding these foods. Basically, eating these foods when you have a kidney problem. Now, what is causing this kidney problem is what is not being addressed. So we will get to the causes of a kidney failure. And I want you to know that a kidney disease is classified according to an estimated glomerular filtration rate. It's called EGFR. This is basically the amount of creatine that is being filtered by the kidneys. Now understand, the role of the kidney is to filter fluids and water. 1,000 liters, 100 of liters of water every day is filtered out by the kidneys. And this water includes or has dissolved nutrients, dissolved electrolytes, and all these components that are dissolved in water is exactly what the kidney is filtering, apart from larger molecules like the blood cells, the red blood cells, and also the protein. Because if protein start filtering through the kidneys and they are found in urine, that is what we call proteinuria. That is an indicator of a messed up kidney. Now remember, the kidney is like a sieve, and therefore if you're trying to sieve, let's say you've washed some grains, let's say like beans, and then you want to sieve them through a sieve. If you find water coming through the sieve and that water has some beans, then you start to question the sieve or the integrity of the sieve. The same thing happens to the kidneys. So once you filter that blood and you filter that water, it goes out with some electrolytes and some dissolved substances, apart from the larger ones, which are proteins and red blood cells. Now, the issue comes in here. When you have these dissolved substances being filtered, we will reabsorb all of them back into the system. So the kidney will reabsorb them back. Glucose is reabsorbed 100% unless you have a kidney failure or you have diabetes. Also, sodium is reabsorbed, like 99% of sodium is reabsorbed in the kidneys back into the system. But creatinine is not reabsorbed. That is the problem, because if now creatinine in blood starts going up, that is an indicator that your kidneys are not filtering enough fluids, because they are supposed to filter this creatine and not reabsorb it back. And since in your system creatine is rising up, that is already an indicator that you have a problem with the kidneys, because they are not excreting enough creatine, which is dissolved in the water that's being filtered. So the kidney disease is classified into 5 stages. We have stage 1, we have stage 2, we have stage 3, and stage 3 is classified into stage 3A and 3B. We have stage 4 and then stage 5, which is basically classified or called end-stage renal failure or kidney disease. So at stage 1, you're still considered normal, because this is just basically when you carry out a urinalysis, you'll get some protein in urine, and this can be caused by infections and also maybe an injury to the kidneys due to consumption of some drugs like the NSAIDs or the painkillers. And then so that is still normal. So in stage 1, you're filtering maybe 90 mLs and above. Okay, so that is still considered as normal. Same to stage 2, but stage 2 you're filtering over 60 ml but less than 90 ml. Okay, so remember, we are classifying renal disease into these stages according to the amount of creatine that is filtered through the kidneys. So if you're filtering this amount of fluids that are higher than 60 ml per minute, and less than 90 ml per minute, that tells you are at stage 2 of kidney problem. This is still considered as a normal range also. So during these 2 stages, you do not need to avoid anything. This is the problem. Everybody will be told to avoid all those foods and the salt and the caffeine and then the saturated fats at this stage. But it doesn't make sense, because this stage you're still considered as normal, and therefore avoiding those food has no beneficial advantage or has no benefit. So what you need is to start editing dietary modifications for you to start recovering from these issues with the kidney, because remember, this is still normal in quotes. Then you have stage 3A, where you're filtering 45 mLs, then 3B 30 mLs, and as you proceed, stage 4 is basically 15 to 30 ml, and stage 5 is below 15 ml. Okay, so this stage 5 is the problem, because that is the end stage kidney problem, and at this stage you need to visit a nephrologist, a kidney specialist, for you to get guidelines, because at this moment in time you're either headed for dialysis or a kidney transplant, and those would be the best alternatives for you. However, I want you to remember, this stage is the point where you're supposed to be told to leave or to quit literally everything. Like, you minimize fluid intake and water, you minimize potassium, you minimize sodium intake, you minimize phosphorus. And the reason why you're doing that is because you already have the failing kidneys, and they cannot excrete or filter these electrolytes. Once you cannot filter them, then all the consequences that come as a result of building up of toxin and building up of these electrolytes in the system will start to occur. Like, if you build up potassium, then your heart rate will start to slow, then you might get into arrhythmias, and you might have a heart attack. If you have high amount of sodium in the system, your blood pressure will start going up, because you cannot excrete sodium in the kidneys, you cannot excrete water. If you take a lot of fluids and water, you're affecting your blood pressure also. So phosphorus and all this, even nitrogen, which is basically a byproduct of metabolism of protein, okay, will be avoided. And this stage is only right that you avoid those meats, because at this stage you are going into a kidney failure completely. So that is how it's supposed to be, okay? And you realize in the world population, I think about 4% of people have this end-stage renal failure. And you realize, basically the kidney disease. But you realize in this percentage, only 1% are at stage 5. So the percentage is very minimal. Then at stage 4, 3% of the population. So that tells you that it happens rarely. But the modern man, these conditions are getting, the percentages are getting to increase because of what we are eating, the diets, and all that, and the drugs that we take over the counter every time. So I will take you, before we even understand this, now that we've understood the stages, so we'll now start to question ourselves that what is really causing kidney problems. So when we use this information, we will then start to classify the causes. And since in this channel what we do is we emphasize on preventive rather than curative care, or holistic healthcare in general. So when you know the causes, it's easy for you to prevent the occurrence of kidney problems. And the number one on the list of kidney problems is basically type 2 diabetes. Now that is sugar. Number 2 on the list is hypertension. So chronic hypertension can really affect your kidneys, and that will cause a kidney problem. Now if you're keen, you already start to realize that already number 1 and number 2 are sugar related. So hypertension and diabetes are totally linked because of the cause, which is basically insulin resistance, and that is basically sugar in all forms, including fruits and honey. Number 3 on the list is kidney infection, another one linked to sugar, because if you do not have, let's say, bacterial infection or any other infection that is not linked to sugar, however, you'll find it so hard to classify an infection not linked to sugar, because sugar lowers your immunity, and once it lowers your immunity, that gives a chance to bacteria and all these microorganisms to attack you. Also, sugar messes the kidneys directly, so it can cause inflammation, which will end up giving you an infection. And again, sugar is a substrate for bacterial growth or microorganism growth, and therefore if you have high amount of sugar in your urine, definitely you'll get those infections. So number 4 on the list is medications, and these medications are what you take over the counter, the painkillers called as NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, the diclofenac, the ibuprofens, the meloxicams, the aceclofenacs. The normal ones that you take for arthritis and all these back pains and pains in general are very detrimental to the kidney, because they reduce renal perfusion. So they reduce the the flow of blood towards the kidneys, and therefore filtration is affected. Then antibiotics, the reserve antibiotics that most of you use, because when you're using antibiotics every time, you might end up in resistance, and therefore you will be taken to the reserve antibiotics, the likes of chloramphenicol, the likes of gentamicin, and that is a very commonly used drug, and it kills the kidneys. The likes of vancomycin, the piperacillins, these antibiotics that are specifically put aside for severe infections. These are the ones that affect your kidneys, and even other drugs like antiretroviral drugs, anti-TB, anti-cancer drugs. These are the drugs that will affect your kidneys. Okay, so that is classified under medication. Number 5 is autoimmune, and the most known autoimmune condition is lupus. Most of you know of rheumatoid arthritis, which affects the joints, but lupus is an autoimmune condition that affects soft tissues, and the kidneys are highly affected. And for you to understand this, we already put up a video that is talking about autoimmune conditions, and we know that autoimmune conditions will either hail from a messed up gut or a messed up adrenal glands on top of the kidneys. So you see already this is being caused by sugar and processed foods. So again, sugar is linked to autoimmune conditions here. And the last one has to be poisoning. Poisoning will involve a lot of things. Ladies who go ahead and do bleaching skin products, those people who use too much deodorants every time, and even the skin lotions, most of them have chemicals that are rich in mercury or lead, and these are the chemicals that affect the kidneys. So also heavy metals that we drink through water, maybe the tap waters that have a high amount of lead, the mercuries that we eat in most of the seafoods nowadays, and all these toxic chemicals in the environment that will basically hurt our kidneys, including the agriculture-used herbicides and chemicals. So our industries that are carrying out agriculture, fertilizers, these chemicals that are used to ripen fruits like the calcium carbide, will totally affect your kidney. So those are the causes. Now, if you have these causes, you already know how to prevent it. You already know how to avoid kidney failure. So you will not, this is what you're supposed to focus on, not the foods that you should avoid, because the foods are just they will bring the consequences, but they will not help you. Avoiding those foods will not help you to heal from kidney disease, because for you to heal, you must know what is causing a kidney disease. And those are the 6 causes of the kidney disease. Okay, and if you avoid that, and then you'll be okay. So look at it this way: if you're told to avoid foods that are rich in potassium, okay, like the bananas. Basically, in this channel, we don't encourage you to eat ripe bananas because of the chemicals and because of fructose. So let's say like bananas, the green bananas, or let's say like avocados that are rich in potassium, or nuts. When you eat that, if you have a normal kidney, you will not have an excess because it will filter them out. But if you have a dysfunctional kidney, then potassium will go up. You will have a problem with the heart. If you eat foods that are rich in calcium and oxalates, like the spinach, like the fermented cabbage, like the eggs, like the bone broth, and this calcium is not being filtered out from the kidneys, or is not being assimilated with phosphorus to be sent in the bones, and then of course you'll have calcium toxicity. Okay, then you might end up having that cardiac contraction, because calcium plays a very major role in contraction of the heart and also smooth muscles. And again, if you have kidney failure, oxalate stones will start to accumulate. You will end up in kidney stones. So one condition leading to another. Let's say like protein, you avoid red meat, but in real sense, avoiding red meat will not help you recover from a kidney failure. What red meat will do is it will be broken down, and the byproduct will be nitrogen. So this nitrogen is one that will be excreted through the kidneys if they are functional. If they are not functional, nitrogen will start going up, and that's the reason why when you go to do that BUN, you will get high nitrogen in your blood. And nitrogen is very toxic in your system because of ammonia and all other things that will cause you mental health conditions and even hepatic failure. So it's all about what causes the kidney. So if you are you're keen enough, you already know if you avoid sugar, you've avoided about 70% of the causes of kidney failure. So sugar is a toxin to the kidney. So for you to just have these functional kidneys, avoid sugar in all forms, including fruits and honey. Avoid processed foods. Avoid soy products. Avoid wheat products and synthetic wheat products like the spaghetti, like the pastas. Stay away from them. Stay away from modern foods. Stay away from sugar. I will never stop mentioning sugar because sugar is playing a very major role in this one. 70% of it is just sugar. And then those drugs, do not buy drugs all the time and use them for pain. Okay, these drugs have side effects, and one of the side effects is kidney failure. So if you avoid that, then you're being safe. Let's start fasting, because fasting will reverse insulin resistance. Fasting will kill sugar in your system. Fasting will bring insulin down. Once that happens, your system starts to normalize. Okay, then enjoy the sun, because the kidneys require vitamin D. They activate vitamin D. So once you have functional kidneys, then you absorb and synthesize vitamin D adequately, and your immunity starts to go up. Also remember that the kidney plays several functions in the body. That excretion part is just one part. We also have EPO, which synthesizes RBCs, the red blood cells. So if you have kidney problem, that is anemia. If you have kidney problems, then you'll have a problem with calcium and phosphorus. That means your bones will be problematic. If you have kidney problems, you have uncontrollable hypertension, because it's the role of the kidney to control blood pressures. If you have a problem with the kidney, then all other organs will start being affected. And that is a problem. You will not produce aldosterone. You will not produce these fertility hormones. Okay, because they are part of the kidney, because the adrenal glands are just on top of the kidneys. So you will affect a whole lot of organs in your system, in the organ systems. So protect your kidneys by all means, and they will start to protect you. Do not avoid those foods if you have a stage 1 or stage 2 of kidney failure. Do not, until you're confirmed to be at stage 4 or end stage kidney disease, the end stage, which is stage 5. Then at that moment in time, we can tell you, hey, you cannot eat this, you cannot do this. You will now have to go for dialysis or a transplant. But if not, do not avoid those foods. Enjoy your coffee, enjoy your red meat, enjoy your saturated fats, drop the unsaturated ones. Enjoy your salt, okay? Enjoy your potassium-rich foods, because the system will clear them out. Excess of them will be cleared out by the kidneys. So that is my take on kidney disease. I hope this video opened up your mind a little bit, and if it has, kindly share it widely, because there are people who need this type of information to help them recover from these conditions, if at all they are going through such a condition. If you have a relative who is going through this condition, at least now you have an idea of how to help them. Use this information to help those who need it, and we appreciate your support.